Welcome back to Listen, Learn, Champion. We're here with Madison Prewett. I'm just kidding.
Different Madison.
We have our own Madison. Y'all, it's like Valentine's season. It's season of love.
I love it.
I love it. And you know what we are going to do? Talk about Maddie Prewett's new book. Because we both read it.
There we go.
Hot topic. I'm just kidding.
No, and love her.
No, I watched her season on The Bachelor, and I remember this Christian queen popping off right now on national TV.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I know. Me too.
I rooted for her just because she was a Christian, but I was like, this guy is not enough for her.
Well, I just loved that she was so unapologetic.
Yeah.
And it was encouraging as a Christian woman. Like, this girl's on national television.
I know.
Just
laying down the law.
Yeah. I love this girl. So
I'm so pumped. Like I said in our very first episode of the year, we got some tricks up our sleeve. This was obviously one of them. We were so excited about this. We talked about reading this book when it came out. When we first started talking about the transition for the podcast, I was like, we have to read Maddie Prewett's book. She is all over the internet right now. She is hot topic. Everybody is reading the book. So I feel like we had to read it for ourselves, give it a talk, because it is for the single ladies. Yeah. And, you know, we obviously we're single once. Just because we're engaged now doesn't mean we lived a single life.
Oh, yeah.
So Madison, when you were single, did you ever wonder if there may be something wrong with you, that the right one just couldn't possibly come, or even if you were worthy of love? And how did you overcome knowing that you are?
Yeah. So I don't know if there's any other long relationship girlies out there, but
we're like polar opposites in this realm. So I'm excited for this.
I have had few relationships, but they really just two serious. One prior. Yeah. One prior. And then now Robert, who I'm engaged to.
But wait, full disclosure, you dated Rob when you were younger.
Okay.
Right?
Hot topic. So
Rob, we're calling you out.
Rob and I dated in middle school. He was in 8th grade and I was in 7th grade, and he had the Justin Bieber flippy hair. Still a believer. Still a believer to this day. I told him it's a non-negotiable. I will always love Justin Bieber. But yeah, so I really wanted to date Rob in middle school, and he actually asked me out and made it official on Valentine's Day.
Oh, I love this.
And
not middle school Maddie.
Yeah, middle school me. And we dated for a few months. So we started dating in February, and then it was his time to go to high school.
I forget, how much older is he than you?
Like a year and a half. Like
okay.
Age wise. Okay. But 1 grade.
Okay.
So he was going to high school and decided he was going to leave his middle school girlfriend.
In middle school?
So on the topic of forgiveness, my mom has forgiven him, but will never forget that he broke up with me. So he was my first heartbreak, and I hated Valentine's Day for the next year, because in middle school, it's like you're everything, you know? Yeah. He was my first real boyfriend, kind of. And I was just so upset.
Rob is going to be embarrassed by this.
Oh, he's heard it a million times. He knows. So he knows. And anyway, so that happened.
Now, okay. Did you think you were going to marry him?
No. No.
That is so funny.
We'll get into that story. I think a little bit later in the season. But in a few episodes coming up with all that. But I was single for a little bit, got into another relationship in high school that lasted into my freshman year of college. So
what?
It was like three years. So
what?
Yeah.
I didn't know you guys dated in college.
Yeah, through the end of my first semester of college.
Wow.
So it was long distance, all the things. So I was a long time. Back then I was even a date to marry girl. I liked the long relationships. I knew what I wanted.
Wow.
So my real season of singleness began my second semester freshman year of college.
Okay.
So when that relationship ended, it was ultimately a mutual agreement that it just wasn't working. We were doing long distance.
Yeah.
We both had different visions of our timeline. There was a 2-year age difference between us at that point. So we were just in very different walks of life. And just realized for the best, it just wasn't working out any longer. And, wish all the best to him. It wasn't no terrible ending or anything like that. We just realized we wanted something different. And so that began my season of singleness. And
wow.
Yeah. And that season lasted like 2 years, maybe 1.5, 2 years.
Wow. I'm like the polar opposite of you.
And there were so many, I went to college in Georgia. There were so many boys. So, but.
Did you date in college?
I didn't.
Really?
Not until Rob and I started dating in college, but we didn't meet in college.
So, okay. What made you feel like you didn't want to date anyone in college? Because I feel like, you're living through the same thing. You're kind of figuring it out. You're adulting.
Well, I was learning what dating kind of looked like. I mean, being in a sorority, we had these date parties, date nights where you could either go on a fraternity date night or you could invite somebody to yours. Most of the time I just brought I had 2 really, really amazing guy friends, just like true friends in college. So I would always bring them and just know that I'd have a good time. I never dated anybody, but I had a little thing, decided that wasn't working for me, that I really didn't like any of the boys at my school. And I said, okay, well, I think it's time.
And you went to like a big school.
Yeah. Wow. So I just realized I don't think the intentions are the same with everyone here, like in the dating pool.
Dude, dating pool in college sucks.
Yeah.
It just sucks.
Because I was thinking I'm going to find a sweet Southern boy. I'm in Georgia. No, that's not how it worked. So I just worked on growing myself because I had been in a relationship for so long. And to be honest, I wasn't finding anyone that was on the same life path as me. And it might have been the circle I was in. It might have just been where who I was surrounded by, but I really didn't find anyone else who was equally yoked, who really wanted to pursue a relationship with the Lord at the foundation of our relationship. So I just decided to enjoy college with my friends and growing my relationship with the Lord until COVID happened and I came home, which is when Rob and I reconnected.
I remember when you posted on your Instagram when you and Rob started dating again and was like, I forget like the actual verbiage that you used, but you were like, back with my middle school crush or something.
It was something like that.
Not this girl going back.
Yeah. So my plan wasn't to date him.
Lived for it. I was like, I'm living for this right now.
A swipe and put a picture of us from middle school and then a picture.
Oh yeah, I was living for it. I
wasn't planning on dating him either, and I told him that. Like I didn't want to do long distance again. Oh yeah, I was so transparent, and it was.
I'm learning so many new things.
I don't want to go on too much of a tangent unless you just want to hear it like quickly. Okay, reconnected through his best friend.
I mean, you can either do it in this episode or...
We'll save it for the next. How about that?
Okay.
Because I think we should talk about how we met.
Yeah. Tune back for that.
Okay.
Okay, so let's bring it back to like college and learning to like love yourself. What did that journey look like for you?
So I personally just come from a long battle with insecurity.
Oh, okay.
And finding worth physically. I've always been confident in who I am internally, in my relationship with the Lord, with my personality, how I cultivate friendships. I've always been very confident internally, but externally is where I would struggle. I would always feel like, for example, I was always the tallest in my friend group. And I'm just...
Felt that.
Yeah, I was always... Growing up here, I towered over everyone.
I think you're my only friend where we're the same height.
Yeah.
I mean, all my friends are short.
Other than my friend from when we've been friends since we were 5, she moved away. So like my tall friend left.
Yeah.
And I had one other, and then all my other friends were like 5'2". Yeah. And I'm 5'7".
What size shoes do you wear?
9.
I'm a 9.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't share shoes. I couldn't share clothes because like my waist was where their Like legs were like, it was.
Yeah. It was the shoe thing for me because I remember going to stores and they would never have my size. Yeah. And then I was like.
It was just a few different things. And I felt like something was wrong with me because whenever I would go to sleepovers, so many of my friends, because I just wore a little bit of a bigger size than everyone else. Yeah. One, because I was never petite. In the petite sizes, I'm broad. Yeah. I had hips from a pretty young age too. Yeah. I just developed quicker. I don't know. So I was never the same size as my friends. Yeah. But my friends were the same size as each other. So they could always borrow their stuff and they could fit into mine because it would be a cute, oversized, slouchy fit. But when I wanted to go sleep over at a friend's house, I had to make sure I had enough clothes for whatever we were doing because I knew I couldn't borrow what they had. Yeah. So just from a young age in my mind, I thought, oh my gosh, something's wrong with me. And I just had broad shoulders. I was just a different stature than a lot of my friends. You're saying. Yeah. College actually helped me because my roommate that I lived with all 4 years, we were the same size, like across the board. Nice. Same size shoes, same size pants, same size shirt. I was like, oh my gosh, someone wears the same size.
I know. My roommate in college was the same way. She was super tall and we were the same size and I loved it.
It was the best. And I joined the sorority and I had tall friends. I said, oh my gosh, they were just in New Jersey. Just wearing such a state.
Jersey, not Jersey.
My Jersey friends. Hi. But it really helped me start loving myself and recognizing that it was just where I was. And I started seeing a lot of other people that had different body types and just came from so many different places. And in college, you're on your own for the first time. You know, you make your own decisions. Are you going to have chicken fingers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Like, eat what you want. This is not like a triggering podcast. We're just being very open about my experiences, but you hold the fate. You don't. You're freshman 15.
Freshman 15.
I gained it. Yeah. No joke. But it was just a long process of learning to. I thought I had to be a certain way to have everyone at school accept me. Yeah. And then quickly realized, you know, there was interest, but I don't know. The relationships that were starting weren't being started on the foundation that I was desiring for a future husband. And I've always had the date to marry mentality. I know not everyone's like that. A lot of people just love going on casual dates. I've just never, I've never had that mindset, to be honest. Yeah. But so it was learning to love myself on the outside too, that I think helped prepare me. And Rob has helped me with that a lot.
I love that.
Too, so
I love that. In Madison's book, she states, I couldn't love others well because I was so desperate to be loved. I couldn't serve others because I was constantly striving to prove I was worthy of being picked. I kind of feel like that goes with kind of what you're saying of like, you know, you didn't love yourself like externally. Internally, you knew who you were. Yeah. So it makes it hard sometimes to love your other people because you're not loving yourself. When you hear that, what would you encourage others to do to stop striving to be picked? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I find when I was looking and hoping for a boyfriend, I was always wanting to be asked on the date nights. I was always wanting to, you know, be asked on a date, even if that wasn't what I was looking for in the moment. Like I wasn't really looking for a boyfriend. Yeah. You still want the opportunity to say no. If that makes sense. Like you just want opportunity. Yeah. And I know that sounds bad, but the interest, it's fueling. So I was looking for satisfaction in other areas. Even though I wasn't looking for a boyfriend, I wasn't looking to date anybody. I still wanted the interest.
Yeah.
To be picked.
I feel like I get what you're saying. Yeah. So I experienced that a lot when I was in college. So I didn't date. I was very much a nerd. So I just like really focused on school. Because when I graduated high school, I had my associate's degree. So I like basically started my program. Like I had very little prereqs left to do. And so I started my program and I was up at 5 a.m. going to class, working out, like all the things, and then wouldn't get home till 5 or 6. And I had to study. Like I had stuff to do. And my roommate was always going on dates and I was so jealous. Yeah. I was like, I don't even want a boyfriend, but I just want to say no. Like, so I get what you're saying. Like you just wanted to feel like someone picked you other than someone else. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's it. You just wanted the interest, and that was just looking for satisfaction. Yeah. I was looking for someone else to prove to me that I was beautiful when I needed to just find that internally. if that makes sense. So that was that long battle that I was dealing with. And I swear, when you're looking in all the wrong places. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as it pauses and you're really not looking for anything to come out of a situation, is when you're the most relaxed, and it just naturally, the Lord will bring someone into your life. It's the weirdest thing. So when you're looking so hard to be picked, you might be looking in all the wrong places.
Yeah, that's really good. I love personally how Maddie Prewett in the book bashes like today's society's definition of love. Like I loved that. Like I was like, yeah, good for you. Call it how it is. This world does not know what love is. They just don't. They don't have the foundation. I think she kind of talks about how they find it in like worldly views, stuff like that. They find it in like pop culture, movies. Like they think it's this like movie-esque picture perfect kind of thing, and it's not like that, you know? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's in her, it's like one of the first chapters.
It says we're bombarded with images of love and relationships and sex and happiness and weddings and influencers who seem to have picture perfect lives, but so many of us feel alone and confused. Yeah. So she just continues to like kind of talk about, you have to break the mentality you think you have on love, or what your definition is of love, because I feel like everyone kind of has a definition of love, but there's only one definition of love. Do you have that verse pulled up? Yeah, I do.
Because we kind of talked about it, and I feel like you can't talk about love until you talk about what the biblical definition of love is.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1 Corinthians 13:4-8, and this is just the first line of it. But love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. Yeah. And it continues on and starts to explain what love is. You hear it at a lot of weddings.
Yeah. That's a hot verse they use for weddings.
Yeah.
But how do you walk out like loving yourself day to day?
I think it's through knowing who this sounds so cheesy, but knowing who the Lord called you to be, and breaking that down a little bit further is,
hold on, before you go further, if someone is hearing that and they don't know what that means, what would you say?
There are qualities about yourself that, yes, you develop through life experiences, but there are a lot of qualities that were God's given gift to you. God's gift given to you. And there are certain things about yourself that you might question, why am I like this? Why am I doing this? And I mean, me personally, it used to be that everyone would call me the mom. And I just have this maternal instinct. I don't know. It's a protective thing. Yeah. I love my friends. They'd call me Mama Bear. I hated it because I hated it. And because it made me feel like I was a stick in the mud. Like, I get what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. And I never really cussed. I didn't have, it just wasn't in my vocabulary. So anyone would say a bad word and say, don't say that, Madison's around. It made me feel like a stick in the mud.
Yeah. I think for you, like if anyone's listening and you feel like you're the same way, living out that you have a truly amazing gift to love others so authentically is so beautiful, because a lot of people can't do that. Like a lot of people see a person before they love, and you love before you see the person. Right. And it's such a beautiful gift that a lot of people don't have. Thank you. And like really truly live that out. So if you feel like you're Madison, where you felt like a stick in the mud or whatever, you love people so well, and that is a gift, and walk it out, because people admire that about you. Yeah. If that makes sense.
I had a friend recently, and it just reassures everything. Even my first time going to youth group with Trevor, Pastor Trevor of our church all the time. He actually prophesied over me the first time that I had a mother's anointing. Wow. And I said, you don't even know my name. How do you know this about me? Wow. And I feel like that was the Lord's confirmation. Yeah. You're doing something right. Well done, daughter. Yeah. So that thing that might bother you about yourself is something that you need to learn to love. Yeah. And I actually had a friend that I haven't seen in over 2 years. He came to me and said, I hope you know I've listened to your podcast. I hope you know that I'm pursuing a relationship with the Lord, because whatever you said to me all of those years back in high school never left me. I just wasn't ready to hear it yet. Wow. So what you do matters.
Yeah.
And the thing that might make you most insecure about yourself, or you can't seem to love about yourself, is what others value most about you, and really is God's gift to you too.
And if you don't have that gift, you have another one that's just as good for you as her gift is for her.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So back to what you were going to say.
Absolutely. Well, now I don't remember.
We were talking about how do you walk out loving yourself like every day?
Yeah. Finding what it's a choice too. I talk so much about mindset, and if you wake up every day, you think, oh my gosh, I don't want to get dressed. I don't like the way I look. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. You're already setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
If you wake up every day and say, I'm going to make today a great day. I look great. I love what I'm putting on. Having things that you look forward to and the way you talk to yourself, positive self-talk is so important.
It is. If you have an expo marker, like those whiteboard markers, write on your mirror that you are beautiful, worthy, any Bible verse that you personally recognize with or like feel personal to, put it on your mirror because it will come off. So expo markers are your friend for mirrors. I did that in college. I also use sticky notes.
Yeah.
And so when I was getting ready in the morning, I had all my positivity, my encouragement, my affirmations, because you need them.
Yeah. I'm trying to find this.
I feel like you're pulling up something.
I am. This verse got me through a lot.
I feel like everyone has that one verse that they're like, this is it for me.
So your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. For this is the way the holy women of the past who put their hope in God used to adorn themselves. They submitted themselves to their own husbands, like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called her to the Lord. You are her daughters if you do what is right and do not give way to fear.
What is that again?
1 Peter 3:3 through 6.
All right. Y'all write that on your mirror. That's a good verse.
That got me through.
That is a really good verse.
Toughest seasons of insecurity.
That is really good. How do we avoid settling? Let's get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, dating sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, it just does.
Well, and if you're anything like me, as much as I would always dream about being a wife and dream about some people don't. And
I mean, we can talk about that because I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it always worried me that I would just get into something because I was so excited versus really truly knowing what I was getting into and what I was signing up for. So I'm always worried. I mean, I know my worth. I know what I deserve. Yeah. But I also recognize that everyone is human. Yeah. And whoever I ended up with, it's not going to be perfect. Yeah. But it needs to have the foundation and, the bones to be able to make something work and along the lines of what I'm looking for. Yeah. And it's putting the puzzle pieces together and learning, okay, am I settling? Am I trying to change too many things about this relationship to make it work? Yeah. Am I just settling because I finally found a relationship, or am I truly in love and this is the person that the Lord sent for me? Yeah. So I think it's knowing the difference and knowing the core values. She outlines it in this book really well too, with some red flags and a few other things to look for. Yeah, that's really good too. Do you want to try and find them and then I can talk about like my perspective? Yeah. So I did not want to get married. Yeah. Like I've said, I did not date in college. I went and hung out with guys, whatever. I just never dreamed of being married. I had a very cookie cutter goal for my life. Like I was going to go get my master's in anesthesiology. I was going to be an anesthesiologist assistant, which is like a CRNA. I was very cookie cutter. Like I was not focused on having a boyfriend. I did not want to get married. I was doing me. I was reading my Bible. I was going to conferences. I was content. Keyword content.
Yeah, I was content. And I was okay with that. I think my dream of not being married came from like my situation of coming from a divorced family. And so when I, had freedom from that, I was like, okay, I still really wasn't ready to date. It was just I was like, okay, when it happens kind of thing. And then I remember I moved back home and I started feeling like this wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the career I was supposed to be going into. It just felt wrong. Now I'm going to school to be an accountant. So my degree has done nothing for me. So that's great. But honestly, I could not be more grateful for my decision. I mean, I come from a family of, my mom is a nurse, my dad was a surgeon. So I always was like, oh, well, I'd be good at it, and I was good at it. I'm very smart, but I enjoy this accounting much more. It's a little bit more fun. Yeah. But with that being said, while I was single and I was content being single, I've talked about this before. Watermark did a series of singleness. Is she dateable? Is he dateable? Are you marriageable? And I listened because I was so just intrigued. And I was like, well, am I dateable? Because I don't have a boyfriend. So let's find out. And I was very challenged about it because it made me mad. Because the very first thing he said was, in the marriage episode, he goes, if you haven't forgiven someone, I won't marry you. And I turned it off and I didn't listen to it again a week later because I was that mad. But I did a lot of healing from that. And when I listened to that, I did forgive that person, but I was so triggered. Anyways, but so when I did that, I learned a lot about myself. And I was really hard. I was very hardened. I was not receiving people well. I did not give anyone the opportunity to love me. So obviously I was not dateable at that point.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to kind of open myself up and not be so harsh and not so hard and quick to anger and all fruits of the spirits, basically.
Yeah.
Even though I thought I was doing all those things, I realized that I was to a point, but being so hard, I couldn't get to that next level of doing it better. And so if you are like me, who you haven't really desired marriage, work on yourself, find being content in your season, really just focus on your relationship with the Lord, and the Lord will give you that desire. Because I remember I want to be in a relationship, but if I'm going to be in a relationship, it's going to be because I married him.
Yeah.
Don't put me in a relationship if I'm not going to marry him.
Yeah.
And I said that. I was very specific. I was like, do not put me in a relationship unless I marry him. I just don't want it. Doesn't mean I didn't go out with guys. I just knew I'm not going to, be in a hardcore relationship with you because I know I'm not going to marry you.
Right.
So really just kind of pinpoint those things about you and pray those dangerous prayers in your singleness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I want to get back to those red flags.
Yeah. Well, I pulled up the 3 questions to consider.
Oh yeah. I love those questions.
And this is really, like I said, whenever Rob and I reconnected, I wasn't looking for a boyfriend.
Yeah.
I really didn't want to get into a relationship. And I honestly didn't know how I felt about reconnecting with him specifically.
Oh,
because...
Are you going to talk about that in this episode?
Or in the next episode.
Okay.
But these questions...
I love it. I'm ready.
Because that kind of bridges the forgiveness episode.
Yeah.
To now questions to consider when you are ready to get into a relationship that you hope leads to marriage.
Yeah.
So this one says, does he make me more like Jesus? This has to do with identity. I want to reflect the heart of Jesus. We're going to naturally become like those we surround ourselves with. So who am I becoming with this guy? Mm-hmm. That's one. Does he push me closer to Jesus? This has to do with faith because I want to be as close to Jesus as possible. And then does he help me make a difference for Jesus? This has to do with purpose. I want to make a difference with and for Jesus. Do I do more for the kingdom of God when I'm with this guy or do I not?
Those are really good.
Yeah.
Those are really, really good. I think this book is helpful when you're single.
Agreed.
So we talked about this before we recorded.
I wish I had it when I was single.
And how now that we're engaged, not saying that the book is bad. it did not resonate, but we recognize that when we were single, we would want a book like this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's not, even if you are engaged, you can read it, but I do think that this was a book for the single ladies, whether they're enjoying their season of being single or they're not. I think it prepares your heart to ask the right questions for your partner and for yourself.
Agreed.
Because I mean, those questions I feel like are self-reflection. Like you can be dating someone and be like, okay, does he make me more like Jesus?
Yeah.
What does that look like for you? And maybe reading this, you can be like, okay, my partner is going to make me more like Jesus by X, Y, and Z. Okay, pray about it. Ask the Lord to bring you a person that makes you X, Y, Z, more like X, Y, Z. And if you feel like that person doesn't do X, Y, Z, but he does A, B, C, pray to the Lord about it and make sure like, hey, this is the right thing for me. Does that make sense?
I'll get into details on that in the next episode too.
Yeah.
Of our relationship and how it didn't necessarily start with that firm foundation, but where we were at then and how the Lord is so incredible and works into where we are now.
Yeah. So I feel like this is a really good book for the single ladies. I have a verse that I wanted to read that kind of talks about just love in all the seasons. So it's Ecclesiastes 3:1. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. It continues in verse 11 saying, he has made everything beautiful in its time. When I read that in my season of singleness, I wrote in my Bible that God's purpose in your life will far exceed what you could ever imagine. Always remember that we follow a God who created, listen, I looked this up, 5,000 known species of frogs. 5,000 different kinds of frogs.
Wow.
I promise you, he will have a person for you that far exceeds your expectations.
And you might date a lot of frogs before you
find a lot of frogs before you find a prince.
Yeah.
You might kiss a lot of frogs until you find your prince. I find that so fascinating that we create a God. Like I love those like Animal Planet shows and like all that stuff because there's so many different species and he's so creative that I'm like, okay, if you can create that many different frogs, I'm pretty sure he created someone for me.
Oh yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When you were single, how did you use your time to be closer to God?
Replacing the time that I would spend. I personally was never really on dating apps or anything like that.
I was.
That's okay. Like nothing.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in the next episode.
Because when I was single, I wasn't actively looking.
Yeah.
So maybe I would just replace the time that I had previously used to FaceTime, text, talk to my significant other and replace that with, fuel for feeding my relationship with God.
Yeah.
And really just imagining and trying to picture where I want it to be. So I would be ready for whoever came into my life.
That leads into like my other question.
Okay.
Was there anything you wanted to accomplish before you got into a serious relationship? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Little twist. I think that if you are with the right person, even I don't know if this is controversial, but whenever you get into a relationship, if it's the relationship that you're meant to be in, it should not keep you from accomplishing the goals that you wanted to accomplish prior to getting into that relationship.
I 100% agree.
I don't necessarily, I can't say I had goals that I wanted to accomplish prior to getting into a relationship because in my mind, like, okay, when I won president in college, Rob was my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah, but that was something you wanted before you were in a relationship.
It was something that I wanted, but it didn't necessarily have to be accomplished when I was single. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not saying that. I guess, that's a fair point. You can have goals and dreams you want to aspire in your life, but don't let your relationship hold you back from reaching those goals.
Yeah. And that was a huge tell-all, which we'll get into this next.
Yeah.
But of how I knew he was the one. It's because he encouraged me in the goals and dreams that I had set for myself rather than hold me back or try to shift the visions to match his agenda.
I love that.
So I think that's a huge tell-all factor and a little nugget of truth for everyone that's single is don't settle.
Yeah.
And don't try to make someone fit what you're imagining yourself to be in.
Yeah.
Just because you want something to work and just because you want a boyfriend and just because you want to feel loved. Read this book. It's literally the love everybody wants. And it talks about how you need to find the love in that the Lord provides to you because it's greater than any other earthly form of love you'll ever come close to. It is the love everybody wants, but it's not always found in the places that you think, you know. So really focus on finding what that is, because once you've experienced that love, it gives you an idea of what the correct love from a significant other should look like.
Yeah. And I think if you're single and you kind of have like these unspoken goals or dreams for your life, but you feel embarrassed to talk about it like on a date, your significant other that's meant for you you'll never feel embarrassed to talk about those things. Like, he'll encourage you, he'll push you, he'll dream with you, he'll want those things for you, he'll want to do them with you. Like, I think that's a relationship with the Lord. Yeah. I was going to say under the Lord, but really it needs to be with the Lord.
Yeah.
That he knows the desires of both of your hearts. And that's why when you become one, that you guys can live out those goals and dreams together.
Yeah. Being single is not being lonely. It's when you can do a lot of work on yourself. Yeah. And I think when you know, if you're questioning, do I still need to be in a season of singleness or am I ready for a relationship? If that's a question you're asking yourself, think back to the question Natasha and I just went back and forth on is, did you have anything you wanted to do before you got into a relationship? Well, if you have the mindset that you're going to accomplish everything that you want and someone can come alongside you, then you're ready. Because it shouldn't be a viewpoint that everything's going to change and everything's going to go downhill and I'm going to have to change all of these things. There's compromise. That's a relationship.
Yeah.
You're going to have to compromise.
Yeah.
And you have to, have an open mind and a soft heart. A hardened heart will get broken.
Yeah. Listen, if you're running after God and you're running after those goals and dreams, he'll come and run along with you.
Absolutely.
At full speed, whatever, half speed to catch you when you're tired, like whatever he needs you to do, he'll do.
Yeah.
And you'll do for him because it's a give and take. There's a verse in 1 Corinthians that is talking about singleness and marriage. And when you're single, you have all the time to be devoted to God. Mm-hmm. Use it well.
Yeah.
Use it timely. Use it as well as you can because it changes. I mean, it does. It does. And when you're single, you feel like you have all the time in the world, and use it with your relationship with the Lord, because it'll carry through in all the other relationships in your marriage.
Yeah. Singleness doesn't mean loneliness.
Yeah. Is there anything else from this book we want to touch on?
I don't think so.
I think there's one more thing. It's a hot topic, so we're going to be really quick about it. Neither of us can remember what page it's on.
Oh yeah, we were going to try to find that.
But she brings up porn and having a porn addiction. I don't know if she did or not, but it was brought up in the book. We can't remember where it's at. If you are in college or out of college, in high school, whatever stage in life you are, if you're struggling with porn, seek help, find community, find a accountability partner. Do not let porn into your marriage, into your relationship. Heal from that. I really, really, really encourage you to find accountability. Pray with the Lord about it. Don't live in shame. Don't keep it in the dark, because that's what the enemy wants. He wants you to feel alone. He wants you to feel like you're the only one. There's people don't talk about it enough. I feel like they only talk about men having a porn addiction, and women is the most rising number of people that have a porn addiction. It's no longer men, it's women as well. And so really just find your community, find an accountability partner, put it in the light, because the more you keep it in the dark, the more you feel alone. And that is the enemy's way of like keeping you away from the Lord, because it's good to talk about it.
Yeah. And on the topic of singleness versus loneliness, if you're just in a season of singleness and you're filling yourself with time with the Lord and growing yourself individually, the opposite of that would be a season of loneliness where you're trying to fill voids in your life with, substitute XYZ.
Yeah.
It could be this, it could be anything else. So that's a great temperature gauge of if you're feeling lonely and trying to fill the void with something else that might not be serving you and preparing you for the next season of potentially being in a relationship or for yourself.
That's really good.
A season of singleness should build you up and prepare you. A season of loneliness just takes you further away.
Yeah, that's really good. I think we'll end with that.
Yeah.
Use your alone time well with the Lord. And we're going to talk about dating and engaged next week.
Yeah. We'll see you then. It'll be good. Bye.